Let me just have a splash. Ugh. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about fungus gnats. I'm really sorry guys. I know this is going to sound so hypocritical because I've been doing so many wildlife videos, but I cannot stand these creatures. I don't know what it is. Your house could be absolutely immaculate, but you get a couple of these little flies buzzing all around you. Oh, it makes you feel dirty. Oh, I hate it. I cannot be the only person who thinks like this. If you feel the same, let me know in the comments. But before we get into my top tips for fungus gnats, I'm going to break it down for you and let you know about their life cycle, because I really think that in order to defeat them, you need to really understand elements of their life cycle. All of my top tips are about trying to cut the links to that life cycle in order for you to be pest free. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. You'll often find fungus gnats fluttering on top of the soil. They're normally a brown or black kind of colour. They're a type of fly closely related to mosquitoes, but they don't bite at all. A female will lay her eggs in the first 1 to 2 centimeters of your pots. She can lay up to 300 eggs in her lifespan. After 4 to 6 days, the eggs hatch into larvae. The larvae will eat any fungus in the soil, but they'll also eat any dead or rotting material. Not only that, they will also eat any new or soft growth under the soil. 10 to 14 days later, they then begin to pupate. 4 to 7 days after that, they emerge as adults. The adults then have 7 to 10 days to mate and then start the process all over again. They can only survive in moist soil, which brings us to our first tip. Top tip number 1. Always water from the bottom. What you have to remember with fungus gnats is they absolutely thrive in moist soil. If you're watering from the top, they will lay their eggs in that top 1 to 2 centimeters in moist soil. So the best way around it to prevent that part of the life cycle from happening is get a tray or a saucer, place your pot in that saucer and then water from underneath. Let me give you an example. I'm just going to use this raggedy pot of basil. All you need to do is grab a ratchet container, any old thing will do that's waterproof, fill it with water, then put your pot into that water and let it soak up the water from the bottom. Top tip number 2. Now I'm starting my seed sowing for autumn and winter. Being a balcony gardener, I don't have the space outside to start sowing my seeds outdoors and placing them in a large greenhouse. So that means that I've got to do everything inside. Now, as we've already discussed, one of the other things that they feed on is new roots. And so what I found is I could set a whole load of new seeds. After a week or so, if I've got an infestation of fungus gnats, they will wipe out all of my brand new seedlings. What I've learned to do is if I'm seed sowing indoors, I will make sure to cover all of my seedlings with either cling film or a lid, just to keep any fungus flies from dropping down into that soil and then making a new home in there. Top tip number 3. Now, cinnamon is a natural fungicide. So what I like to do is I will put this on the top layer of soil. Sprinkling the cinnamon on top of the soil will stop the fungus from growing, and that immediately cuts off a food source for the fungus gnats. Top tip number 4. If you've been part of the CG family for a while, you will recognize this guy. This is Simon. He is my lemon tree and I've grown him from seed. I have a real emotional attachment to this guy. I'm absolutely in love. But what I did want to show you is how he is protected from fungus gnats. If you look closely, you'll see that I've topped the compost with about 1.5 centimeters of sand. The sand acts as a barrier. The sand stops the fungus gnats from burrowing down into the soil. In fact, the sand will also suffocate them. So you'll find that the fungus gnats will just leave the plant alone. It's important to know that if you choose this tip, you've got to make sure that you're using horticultural sand. This bag was inexpensive, but I also use sand and mix it into compost for different plants. So for me, this is a material that I have laying around the house. But if you're going to use the sand, then you have to commit to bottom watering, because if you water from the top, the sand will eventually wash away. Top tip 5. I call this next tip a thirst trap. Now, we've already cut off the water supply for these fungus gnats. What we now need to do is set some traps for them. Now, I've just taken this old vase here. It actually was a candle. Yes, it's still got paper attached. I can't get it off. If you're new to my channel, one thing you should know about me is I don't really care. It is what it is. I'll just use whatever ratchet containers I can find. All you need to do is just fill this with water and then pop it somewhere near to an infested plant. You want something with some steep sides, because once they fly in to try and get the water, they won't be able to get back out again and they will drown. It doesn't just have to be water though. A lot of people use apple cider vinegar. I don't like that because I just don't like the smell flooding my front room, but any kind of wine is a good one to use. So I'm going to use some rosé wine because that's all I've got. Where people go wrong is they will use 1, maybe 2 of those tips and expect for the fungus gnats to disappear. That is your ultimate mistake. In order to be successful at completely getting rid of the fungus gnats, you need to employ several of those tips all at the same time in order to completely remove the fungus gnat situation. For example, if you are seed starting and you're using a tray, 9 times out of 10, you won't be able to bottom water that tray. But if you use the cinnamon powder, the thirst trap, and covering with a lid, your seeds are going to get off to a really decent start. As you then transplant them, you can then go on to bottom watering, and if need be, if it's something that's really precious to you and you want that extra layer of protection, then add on the sand. But failing that, we have one what I call the nuclear option. Let's get into it. Top tip 6. This was Jane. She got attacked by spider mites and fungus flies. Basically, I wasn't implementing any of my tips with her, and through the combination of both of those pests, she really is not looking good. But there's still some green on some of these stems, so I'm pretty confident that I can rescue her. I'm just gonna have to chop her back, but that is a separate video. What I did want to show you is mosquito bits. Now, this is an organic treatment that you can use for fungus flies. Now, this is a treatment that you can normally use with mosquitoes, but since mosquitoes and fungus gnats are closely related, it will also help to wipe out your fungus fly infestation as well. Now, this is not a sponsored video. Anyways, I will put a link to them down below in the description box. Now, what this will do is it will kill off all of the fungus fly larvae. So if you get rid of the fungus fly larvae, obviously that is going to completely break that part of the cycle. I would still recommend to implement other tips. That way you stop the flies from moving on to the next pot. So once again, you still need to use all the other tips, but this will really help you get rid of the larvae. Now, on the packaging it says sprinkle 1 teaspoon per 25 square feet or 1 tablespoon per 75 feet over the surface of the container. Lies, absolute lies. When you do that, what happens is it starts to create this kind of mold on the top of your soil. So what I found the best thing to do is grab yourself your watering can. For me, I use a ratchet container. Pour some of the mosquito bits into your ratchet container, leave it to settle overnight, and as you can see, it kind of changes color a little bit, and that is when I know that this is good to use. Then just water from above, I know, using the mosquito bits solution, and that will wipe out the larvae. But the other thing that I would say though is These fungus gnats, they can be quite sneaky as well. So I've seen them, after I bottom watered the plants, crawl down to the bottom of the pot and then lay their eggs underneath. So what you can do is, in your ratchet containers, when you're bottom watering your plants, use a bit of this as well, and that will again will stop them from being able to breed in that moist soil. I hope this has been useful to you. If it has, don't forget to subscribe and like this video as well. If any of your friends are struggling with fungus gnats, share this video and let them know as well. Hopefully, I'll see you again soon. Bye! All clear.